In the elder days, beneath the ever-watchful eyes of the ancient mountains, there lay a realm untouched by the passage of the common years, a land where myth and earth were woven tight. This was the realm of Eldergrove, a kingdom of such beauty and peace that even the stars seemed to pause in their endless dance to gaze down upon it. It was here, amidst the whispering forests and the clear singing streams, that our tale unfolds, a tale of darkness and light, of envy and innocence, a tale as old as time and as fresh as the morning dew. In the heart of Eldergrove, there stood a castle of stone and ivy, its towers piercing the sky, a testament to the might and wisdom of the kings and queens who had ruled this land through the ages. It was here that King Eldred and his queen, Elwyn, welcomed their only child into the world. A daughter of such surpassing loveliness that they named her Snow White. For her skin was as pure as the driven snow, her lips as red as the blood that runs in the veins of the earth, and her hair as black as the raven's wing. But joy is often a fleeting guest in this mortal world, and it was not long before Queen Elwyn was taken from them, leaving King Eldred to grieve and Snow White to grow in grace and beauty, a solitary flower in the endless gardens of the castle. In time, the king's heart sought solace, and he took to wife a woman of great beauty but of heart cold and hard as the mountain stone. Queen Isolde, for that was her name, possessed a mirror of ancient make, a gift from the shadowed realms beyond the mountains, where old magic still held sway. Each day she would stand before this mirror and speak the words of power that had been handed down through the ages. Mirror, mirror in my hand, who is the fairest in the land? And the mirror, bound by the spell that had called it into being, would answer, Thou, O Queen, art fairest of all. But as the seasons turned and Snow White's beauty blossomed like the wildflowers of spring, the mirror's answer changed, kindling a dark fire of jealousy and hate in the Queen's heart. Queen, thou art fair, 'tis true, but Snow White now surpasses thee in beauty true. In her wrath and fear, Queen Isolde turned to sorcery most foul, summoning from the shadows a huntsman and charging him with a deed most dark, to take Snow White into the forest, the ancient and decaying forest, and there to end her life, bringing back her heart as proof of the deed. The huntsman, though bound by the Queen's will, found himself unable to carry out the grim command. Snow White's innocence shone pure, piercing the shadow that had begun to cloud his heart. In the light of the setting sun, he stayed his hand and revealed to Snow White the full measure of her stepmother's malice. Fly, fair maiden, deep into the forest, he urged. Hide where the shadow of the Queen's malice cannot reach thee. Here, take this, he said, offering her a small, intricately carved pendant, a talisman of protection. It will guard thee against the lesser evils of this world. Snow White fled, tears of gratitude and fear mingling on her cheeks, deep into the heart of the forest, where ancient trees whispered secrets of the elder days. She wandered, lost and alone, until she came upon a dwelling, strange and wondrous to behold, hewn from the living rock of the mountain itself. This was the home of the dwarves, who delved deep into the earth, seeking its secrets and treasures. The dwarves, upon finding Snow White asleep in their home, were at first wary, for they knew well the dangers of the world outside their doors. But her innocence and beauty won their hearts, and they offered her shelter and protection in exchange for her company and aid in their household tasks. Meanwhile, Queen Isolde, upon learning from her mirror that Snow White still lived, turned to darker arts still. Thrice she ventured forth in disguise, and thrice she sought to end Snow White's life. First with laces to bind her breath, then with a comb dipped in venom, and lastly with an apple, red and fair to look upon, but filled with a sleep like death. Each attempt was thwarted by the vigilance of the dwarves and the magic of the talisman, but the last proved nearly fatal. Snow White, deceived by the Queen's final guise, took a bite from the poisoned apple and fell into a sleep so deep that even the dwarves, with all their knowledge of earth and stone, could not wake her. They built for her a bier of glass and crystal, set it amidst the forest where the sun's rays might touch it, and there they kept watch, their hearts heavy with grief. In time, a prince from a distant land, wandering through the forest on a quest of his own, came upon the clearing. Moved by Snow White's beauty and the tale of sorrow told by the dwarves, he knelt beside the bier, and with a heart full of love and hope, lifted the lid. At that moment the piece of poisoned apple was dislodged from Snow White's throat, and she awoke as from a long and troubled dream. The prince and Snow White, their hearts entwined by fate and fortune, knew that they had been brought together by a power greater than themselves. The tale of Snow White's return to life and the defeat of Queen Isolde, who met her end in the depths of the mountain, consumed by her own malice, spread far and wide. Snow White and the prince were wed in a ceremony that united not just their hearts but the lands and peoples of their realms. And so, in the fullness of time, Snow White came to rule Eldergrove, her heart and reign marked by the wisdom and compassion she had learned in her time among the dwarves and in the wilds of the great forest. And though the world outside the borders of Eldergrove continued its inexorable march, within its bounds the tales of old, of magic and mystery, of darkness and light, were told and retold, evidence to the enduring power of love and the unbreakable bonds of kinship and friendship. Thus ends our tale, a tale of the Snow White, not as it was told in days of yore, but as it might have been, in a world where the ancient magic still stirs in the heart of the forest and the mountains, and where the paths of fate may lead the unwary to realms undreamed of.